Hey, welcome back to Code 4 Cooking. I'm Jeff. Today we're going to be doing Hawaiian pork chops. My name is Jeff Antonaco. I was a paramedic for over 26 years. I did my bit for king and country, but it took its toll, physically, emotionally, and mentally. One thing that could always bring me peace and calm, and that's cooking. Ask my partners. We ate well. Now I want to share that place with you. For my first responder and military family, I want to share my knowledge and experience of cooking, start to finish, with me, and hope you can find your peace and calm while cooking. And to anyone else just starting or in need of a person to cook with, from gathering and prepping our ingredients to cooking, and finally plating and tasting, let's help you find that peace and calm as well in cooking. So come on, cook with me. So, got our first things we want to do is we want to collect up all of our ingredients. Remember, mise en place is getting everything in the right place and where you want it to make cooking easier. So right away we've got our pork chops, and what we're going to need to do is season these up with salt and pepper. I've got the salt right here and the pepper. In front of me here, just off camera, I've got my onion and pepper on a cutting board, my brown sugar, pineapple, tomato sauce, and cider. Got my rice over here with my oils. I got my pans out, main cooking pan, broth, and rice. So now that we have all of our ingredients collected up, take a minute, make sure that you're not going to cross-contaminate anything. Wash your hands, and come on back, and now we're going to go ahead and season up our pork. So what we want to do is take our salt. This is a kosher salt. You just sprinkle it around the top of the fork there. Remember, when you're seasoning with salts and things like that, shakers going from a higher height allows an even distribution as it comes down. So we're going to do the same thing with our pepper. It's nice and light. If you're worried about there being a breeze or anything else, obviously you just bring it down closer. There we go. All right, that's one side done. Now, we're going to turn these over and do the other side. Remember, we always want to season as we go. All right, now, this hand was on the pork, so I can't use that right now. I'll just go ahead and salt again. Always try to use, if you can, always try to use kosher salt when you're doing this, rather than the iodized. It just makes a difference in the actual sodium that's going into this. Here's our pepper. Remember, you can put on as much or as little as you like. There we go. Close that up. Close our salt. Now we've got our pork has been seasoned. I'm going to take this and set it right back here in a clean prep area. And then I'm going to go ahead and wash my hands. Remember, as we cook, we're going to be washing our hands quite a bit so we don't contaminate anything. I'm going to set the salt and pepper off to the side for a minute. Move my knife. We have a washcloth here. This is just a cleaning solution. And as much as we didn't have the pork on the surface here, there is salt and pepper that obviously went around the side of the plate. And just to be safe, if there weren't any drippings from the pork when we turned it, we give this area a nice little cleaning. Perfect. All right, set that off to the side. Now, all right, here we go. Our chops have been seasoned. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and cut up a green pepper. Number of ways that you can do it, but I like doing it the simplest way. Take your knife, just take the top right off, and you can see part of that stem comes off right away. And you can just set this over off to the side. We have compost, so put it in the compost bin. Just take your finger, you can see the core here. just grab it with the finger, pull it out, throw that to the side, and then when you reach in, you can get all the seeds out. There. Now in peppers, any kind of pepper really, it's this stem on the inside that carries the heat with the seeds. Now green peppers are very, very mild, so this is insignificant for us, but if you're concerned about it, you just take your knife and take that off. The same on the other side here. It will just tear right away. Just like that. And again, we'll keep our area clean, throw that over the compost. Now I do realize in the recipe it says 1/3 of a pepper. The one I got here was fairly small, and I don't mind having extra bell pepper in my meal. So now we're going to chop this up, cutting it into strips. Keep your fingers away from the knife blade. Turn it. And you just hold on to it and you just cut through it nice and easy. Keep your fingers away from the knife blade. Just like that. And on the ring that was the top, you just kind of go through and cut that up as well. No waste. Another thing you could do is you could leave it this way, and you could cut it into strips this way, and that lays them out a little bit more. So if you're looking at doing fajitas or something like that, this might be a better way. And then these just line up. And cut them into, we're chopping these, so these are good sized chunks. We want to have these stand up to the cooking process. All right, now we're going to go on to our onion. I'm going to take the skin off here. We're going to taking the top off. Just take your knife right down the top there. That last little bit usually lets you get a good peel off. There. And it never comes out perfect. A lot of times you'll struggle. This might be the longest time it takes to do your prep, is just getting the skin off the onion. But you definitely don't want it all in your food. All right, so we have a bit of a rotten part here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the next layer just in this area. And that'll clean this up considerably. Now there's still a little bit left here. I'm not going to worry about that because I'm not going to cut into that area. Just taking the knife and just giving a little shave there to get the rest of this onion skin off that I can't grab. Now we're going to take our onion. We go right down the center and the top. Set that off to the side. Now this is where you've got to be very careful with your knife work. You don't want to get your hands in where the knife can cut you. So you want to hold your fingers down to apply pressure, just enough to hold the onion, but not enough to stop the knife from going through. You just make these nice side cuts. Remember, you want to go nice and slow. Always do some cleanup later, as long as you're not cleaning up the blood off your hand. There. Now we're going to go slice straight down. And this is why you left the end on, because it helps keep everything in place. And now we'll come back again. I want it chopped, so I want some good size onion in this. Keeping my fingers away from the knife. There we go. Now, going to this other onion, the other half where we've got the A little bit of a marred piece. All I'm going to do is take what I want, and that should be enough. It's a good sized onion. And then just come back and chop what I took off. So all relatively same size pieces. Get their onion peel and mess out of the way. There. Rinse my hands. Remember, you don't want to have the oils, the juices coming off that onion on your hand. You don't want to touch your eyes or anything else because they will burn. You know, it does hurt. Great. Now we're going to set that off to the side. And we're going to get our broth ready. So what I use is Better Than Bouillon. It tells you exactly how much to measure out. We need basically 2 cups at this point. So I need 2 teaspoons. I have a pot over here. I have hot water. Always nice to have a kettle handy. And I'm going to add my 2 cups of hot water. Right there. Now, Better Than Bouillon's a paste. It's a concentrate. So I've got my 2 teaspoon measure. I'll come out with 2 teaspoons. Now, you're working with, if you're working with the box of broth that you bought, you don't have to heat it up ahead of time. I heated up my hot water because I need to dissolve this. So I got my lid off. I'm going to add my hot water to my pan. And that hot water is going to heat up that steel. And it just slides right out. Careful not to spill like I did. Alright, we'll put our bouillon off to the side. Now this is going to go on the stove. I'm going to start heating this on low. So it'll be ready when we are. Excellent. Clean up my little mess here. We're going to look at going on to getting the rest of our ingredients put together as well. So next up, we're going to go ahead and get our pineapple and things mixed together. So I've got my pineapple chunks, ketchup, apple cider vinegar, and my brown sugar. I'm going to set my knife off to the side. Hey, like I said, nobody's perfect. Forgot to grab a bowl. We're going to mix this into. Got all these nice little nesters. This looks like about a good size. Now, on the ingredients list, it talks about just putting these straight into the pan. I want this to be a calm, relaxed cooking. So what we're going to do is we're going to put all of these items into a bowl, and that way we just have to transfer the whole contents of the bowl into the skillet when it's time. So ketchup, need 1/4 cup of ketchup. Alright, so that's in. Set that off to the side. Pineapple. So you could have grabbed an 8-ounce can. I grabbed a 20-ounce can. No, I'm not going to use all of them. But I'm going to use about half of them. You want the juice to come with. So if you have the 8-ounce can, just pour it all in. If you have a larger can, you can do what I do and just Split it in half. Just like that. And of course, get one more. That is good. A little more of the juice. Now I'm going to put that aside. Cover it up because I'm going to be using it later. We have my brown sugar. So, 2 tablespoons brown sugar. You can just guide it off. Then there's that. Cover up our brown sugar. You always want to make sure you close your bags. Keeps the moisture in, otherwise your brown sugar will turn rock hard. And that does nobody any good. Set this off to the side here. Now, apple cider vinegar is what I'm going to be using here. It's pretty much any cider vinegar is what you want. And it's 1 tablespoon. So you can use the same tablespoon because we're going to dump this and we're not going to be using it for anything else. There are my puppies. They're excited about something. I'm going to set the cider off to the side. Hang on one second. What is it? Alright, thanks guys. Appreciate it. Alright, so they were barking at nothing. I know you were saving the planet. Alright, so right now we've got everything where we want it to be. I have my notebook in front of me to make sure I'm not missing anything. And our prep is about ready. Give this a little stir. Here's our broth. Now, here's what I want to do is I want everybody to take a break. Before we start cooking, I want you to just take a minute, use the bathroom, go over your ingredients list, look over what we're going to be doing here in a minute. Take a minute to yourself, grab a glass of water, and then when you're ready, come back and we'll get cooking on this. We'll start up the heat and get everything going. All right? Come on back. Keep cooking with me. I'll see you in a minute. All right, welcome back. So I hope you had a good break, got yourself a little something to drink, potty break, relax, looked everything over. Now the cooking starts. So first thing we're going to do is gather our rice, our pan. Now I'm going to do exactly what it says on the box. So this is a 1-to-1 ratio. I'm going to have for 4 servings. That's 2 cups of water, 2 cups of rice. So we're going to get our water. There we go. 2 cups of water going into the pan. I'll put that on the back burner and turn it on. There's that going. I'm going to dry this out. We're going to add our rice. And there's our 2 cups of rice. So we can set this aside. Now the key with this is that you got to wait for the water to boil, and then, as it says on the box, add your rice, give it a stir, put your lid on it, turn the heat off. Alright, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to set this off to the side. And for this next step, we're going to bring our pork back around. Now, some of you may have worried, depending on how long you took, having the pork left out on the counter. A lot of people say, like, "Whoa, you got to get it in the fridge right away." You actually want to let your meat come up to a room temperature. So 30 minutes outside of the fridge is nothing. It's not something you got to be worried about. So now we're going to go ahead and heat up our pan. Got that going. And that'll take just a minute to heat up. Now I'm not cooking a non-stick. I've got stainless steel, so my temperatures are going to be a little bit different than yours, unless you're cooking in stainless. And then we're going to add our canola oil, and it's really just enough to kind of coat the bottom of the surface of the pan, so that we can get a good sear with the chops. And with that, we're going to be using our tongs to keep the hands away. So we're going to go ahead and just add a little bit of the canola oil. You can watch it just spread out across there. Just a bit more. There we go. And we'll need to add a little bit of that later when we add our vegetables. So, alright, we're going to let that oil heat up. And this is where the process just kind of, it's going to be kind of rolling. And so what you want to do is you want to make sure that, you know what, let's grab another plate. It's one of the things we forgot. Clean plate. Once we put our chops into the hot oil, we're going to take our contaminated plate, because it had raw meat on it, and put it in the sink. And then we'll have our clean plate, once they've been browned, to go onto the clean plate and just wait and rest while we get the other ingredients cooking. So our water's not quite on the boil yet for the rice. Now, you guys, if you're using the better than bouillon, it's hot, so that's why we did not put it in the mix. If you were using the regular beef broth out of a container, you could have added it to the mix. You still can. That way, we're just going to add everything kind of all at once. So, we'll take a look. We want to get a nice shimmer on that oil to know that it's hot. And it's getting there. Got our peppers, we got our onions. Oh, one thing that we're going to be needing in a little bit is our cornstarch. So we'll keep that handy. Alright, when you're adding meat to oil or whatever you're putting in the oil, what you want to do is you always want to set it in and let it roll away from you. That way if there's any splatter, it's not coming at you. So, good safety tip. So this looks like it's hot enough. You got that nice sizzle going on. Alright, I'm going to set this chop off to the side. And the reason I'm setting it off to the side is because the chops that I bought were larger than 4 ounces. They're actually closer to 7. So we're going to just go with these 3. And believe me, that's getting cooked later. So, adjust the heat just a little bit. Remember, when you're cooking, anytime you add cold to hot, you take that temperature away. So you're dropping the temperature of the pan as the meat picks up that temperature. So now the pan has to struggle again to get that heat back up where it should be. Because we're looking at cooking these things for a few minutes, we don't want to rush it. It's one of the hardest things now, is giving it its time in the pan to cook. So 3 to 4 minutes on each side. I look at the clock on my stove and it says, well, it's 2:36 right now. There you go, daytime. So So we're going to give those a chance to cook. I still have my clean plate ready. I'm going to get my cornstarch set up for when I need to add that. And our cornstarch is 2 tablespoons. All right, 2 tablespoons. We need a bigger bowl. Go. If you ever got to the point where you wondered what all those nesting bowls are for, now you know. It's because you're supposed to do this ahead of time, so you're ready. So there's 1 and 2. Now you see our water is boiling for our rice. Take a minute, let's get our rice in. Get our rice in there. Now you don't need to waste a whisk, just use a fork. Just give that a stir, make sure everything is wet. It is. So now we're going to cover that. Now again, remember that took some heat away from that water. So I usually just give it just a few seconds that we're stirring it, and then we can take the heat off. And that's just going to sit for the next 5 minutes. Easy peasy. Stir our broth a little bit. So as we're looking at the chops, you can see you don't want to disturb them. You don't want to pick them up and keep moving them around. You want to let that sit and get that good sear going on. They've only been on there now for 3 minutes, so I'm going to give them a full another minute because of how big these chops are. We just need a little bit of water for our cornstarch. There we go. And I've got another little whisk in here. And you can use a whisk, you can use a fork. The whole thing is just give it a mix. Nice and easy, don't splash. Where we don't want to make them at. A little more work than we have to. Alright, that's all mixed up really well. Well, we're at 4 minutes, so let's turn our chops and see where we're at. Yeah, you got a nice little sear going on. I'm actually going to let these other 2 go for an extra minute or 2. And put our cornstarch over here out of the way. Now, one of the things that you want to look at in the downtime that we have while these things are cooking is actually look at putting things away. So if you don't need it anymore, we've got another minute. I'm going to go ahead and put my pepper back in my cabinet. The rice, well, honestly I'm going to mix it with another box because there's not a whole lot left there. But I can put my bouillon back in the fridge. And my ketchup. Less that I have to worry about. Cornstarch. Get that put away. And we're going to come back to these other chops now. I don't care who you are, how old you are, you gotta click the tongs. There. See, that's got a nice, a little bit more of a nice browning effect there. So again, you don't want to mess with your chops. The browning is known as the Maillard effect, and all it is a non-enzymatic browning. So that's your science of the day. I love throwing those little tidbits out there. And we're going to let these go for another few minutes. Again, check your chops at 4 minutes. If they're browned, because they're smaller and you're going with the 4 ounces, as we should have been doing, they're probably ready to be turned. Once they've turned and you give them that other 4 minutes, they're done. Take them off to the side and then just wait for us to catch up. Again, calm, relaxed, get yourself hydrated. Nice cold water. If you have one, there are these wonderful probes that you can get. These are from, this is a thermopop from Thermapen. They're wonderful products. So they come in varying colors and prices, whatnot. One of the best thermometers out there as far as my opinion goes. And no, I'm not a sponsor. They don't pay me for this. I just want you to have good tools and good equipment. And that's what it's all about. So I'm going to, nice thing with some of these, you can actually cook them in your pockets if you have pockets in your apron. This one here just opens up. It's already telling me that where it's at is between 68 and 69 degrees here in the kitchen. Just going to slide that into the pork chop. Remember, when you're temping these out, you want to go in the center of the meat, but you don't want to go through. If you go too far in, then you're actually measuring the oil temperature below, which is very hot. And right now, these are temping at about 120 degrees. And we're only at 4 minutes. The goal is 145. So 145 is where we're looking at. And if you're to the point where you have gone through this and you don't have a thermometer to check, take one of the chops out, put it on the plate, cut it. Cut it just a quarter of the way through, open it up. That way you can look and see how much pink is in there, and that way you can decide how done it is. A little bit of pink is good, a lot of pink is bad. These little bit of pink is going to go back into the skillet after we've cooked down our onions and peppers. And then we're going to add the broth, and we're going to be bringing it up to a boil. This brings forward a ton of flavor, getting the browning on here. And that's those little bits that we want on here. Okay? And then with that, when we start adding the broth and things, you're going to notice what's kind of crusted onto the bottom of the pan. And doing this with the broth is going to lift. It's called deglazing. It's going to deglaze your pan and hopefully lift the remaining bits up and into the sauce and into the flavor and just have it carry through. I'm as impatient as anybody else. No matter how much you cook, you always want to try to find that magic number, that magic time frame. Just water. My broth is all mixed and hot. I can leave that to sit now. Don't need to waste any more gas. I encourage you, if you have the opportunity, and you should. It's one of the biggest mistakes I made in my entire lifetime of cooking is I failed to take notes while I'm cooking. A perfect example is the size of the chop. It says 4 ounces here, I got 7 ounces. Are my eyes bigger than my stomach? Maybe, but we'll probably share the chops that we have. I now make a note that I had a larger chop size. It's especially important with the multiple ingredients. When you're done with this, and as you're going through it, you may find yourself saying, you know what, 8 ounces of pineapple was too much, or not enough. Now you can say, make a note, all right, I want to add 2 more ounces of pineapple. I want to add a whole pepper. Now again, the reason why we didn't just do 1/3 of a pepper is because the pepper I got was small. Makes sense. So, and then you go through in your mind and you start adding these things down and writing them down. And then when you come back, now you can say, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? What do I want to correct? You know, somebody once said, you know, that the chefs don't make mistakes, they just make new recipes. To a point, I'll agree. But you can really mess things up too. But it's your flavors and your tastes. All right, let's take a look and see where we're at now. All right. All right, that's right where we want them. Now when you take them out, take the top side here face down. And now you can see that beautiful browning. That's what we wanted on the other side. And if you can't hold their plate up, set it on the counter. There. Now move it over to the plate. See that lovely browning? That's what we were looking for. You can also see, for the oil that's in there, I don't need to add any more canola oil. If yours is dry, if your pan is dried out, then go ahead and add that little bit more canola oil. But our skillet's hot. And so now we're going to go ahead and let's just double check our recipe here. Alright, chops are out. Cook the peppers and the onions. There we go. Those are in. Now we're not looking to caramelize the onions. Excuse me, we don't want them to burn either. What we're looking at doing is just softening them up. Now you can take as what you want as far as how much you want to cook it down. For me, I always want to have that taste. I want to have a bite. You know, I don't want to find myself with seeing a bell pepper and knowing how crisp and beautiful it is and not be able to put my fork on it because it's been cooked to mush. To me, that's just unappealing. We only need a minute or two of stirring these around. Now, one of the things the cornstarch is going to be for us is a thickener. So once we get everything back in the pan and we kind of boil it for a little bit, get all the ingredients mixed up, we're going to add the cornstarch and water, and that's going to be our thickener. In many other recipes, sometimes what they'll do is they'll make what's called a roux, and that's typically an oil or a fat with flour. And you cook that down before adding it to your ingredients. That way it's like making gravy. If you're not comfortable using the tongs to stir your ingredients, grab yourself a wooden spoon. Remember, because this is stainless steel, I can use these tongs in here because they're steel. They're not going to damage the pan. If you have a non-stick pan, you cannot use these types of tongs. You go for something like these that are more the Rubbermaid. And as much as it's a brand, you know what I'm talking about. It's just the silicone ends to them. in your nonstick. Alright. I think they've had enough time in here. They look good. They're getting some good color on everything, but they're not wilty. Hot, but it's crunchy. And it's just bursting with that green pepper flavor. But of course, there's always a hint of onion, and then the salt and pepper that came off the chops. Alright. So now I'm going to add the broth. There we go. I'm going to already turn the temperature up on this because we need to bring it to a boil. Alright, now the rest of our ingredients. So we got our pineapple here with our brown sugar and everything else. We're just going to turn this over. You want to make sure that you get everything out of here. If you need to, if you're capable, and you're not capable, if you're careful, you can dip that in there to get a little bit of that hot liquid, to swirl it around and get all the rest of your ingredients out. Just be careful, don't burn yourself. There, this goes to the sink. Now we got to let this come up to temp. Now remember when that broth hit the bottom of this pan, it started deglazing, lifting that salt and pepper and bringing it up. So as you start turning this, you'll notice that the pan on the bottom of the pan here is going to be almost clean. And I say almost because nobody's perfect. I'm going to put my pans in the sink. Anytime I run out of a pan like this with the stock, it's going to start to dry. Any leftovers on it that didn't drain out completely is going to dry onto the pan, which makes it more difficult to clean. Put it in the sink, run some water on it. Same thing with your bowl. Now, cleanup hint number 1. Although we're probably on cleanup hint number 22. Since you have your bowl, we put it in the sink and added water to it. You can take your measuring stuff and put it in the bowl. That way anything that was dried on can now reconstitute, and you don't have to scrape it off. Put it in the dishwasher if you need to. But all of your measuring stuff can fit in the bowl. All right? Plus, remember, we want to do cleanup. We have our time, so we might as well make the best of it. So I'm going to take my cutting board, move that to the sink. I don't need my canola oil anymore, so I'm going to put this away. My apple cider vinegar can go away. This is coming up to temp. Keeping my fork, I'm going to want to fluff the rice there. Alright, now we've got to put our pork chops back in. Just set them in. Like that. Now we can reuse this plate because the pork chops were cooked and we're just reheating them. So if we need to put them back on the plate, we're not cross-contaminated. They've already been cooked. And you just want to kind of maneuver your chops. It would be easier if they were smaller. So just kind of wiggle them down underneath. Just like that. Now we're going to bring that back up to a boil. Now for me, I'm a fan of butter with my rice. So you do a lot of different things if you're trying to avoid the fats and cholesterols and you're not wanting to use butter a whole lot, I love it because it's fat is flavor. And I'm not using a ton. It's not like it's going to be dripping in butter. Another very tasty way of going about it is use lemon juice. Just juice a lemon or get the lemon juice from the fridge and you can put that on your rice. Beautiful. Alright, back to our notes. Alright, so I'm going to let that cook for just a minute. We're not boiling our meat. What we're doing is returning some of the juices into our sauce. And it just brings out that much more flavor. We do have our cornstarch. We made it early. And if you've ever played with cornstarch as a kid in water, it's got that fun gooey texture to it, but it also separates. So before we add this in, we're going to need to, you can feel it stuck on the bottom there. We're just going to give that a nice gentle mix. Alright, now, we were to bring our chops up. There we go. They're temping out at 145, which is where we want them. We don't want them to dry out too much. There we go. All right, stir in the cornstarch. Again, if you're careful, you can take a little bit of that liquid, swirl it around. Be careful, it's hot. Alright, this goes right over the sink. Pot and pan have water in it, so it goes right into there. Somebody's come down the street they live on. How you doing, Sansa? What is it? Is there another dog out there? Okay, thank you. Alright, so when you're looking at working with a thickener, we bring this to a boil, and then once it's boiling, we immediately reduce the heat and give it a stir. And you can see this already starting to thicken up. You'll notice it more significantly as it starts to cool down. It's one of the things that people make mistakes with gravies too often is they also add the flour and they keep adding it and adding it, and then they get it to the consistency they want while it's boiling. You don't realize that flour still needs that time, just like this cornstarch needs that time to really start to bind and thicken up everything. And that's why you could get lumpy gravy, or you're constantly adding more and more water to it because you're trying to thin it out to get back to that original consistency. Let's grab a plate. Now, rice. Butter. Got my rice over here. Be careful sometimes, depending on your lid, they could be very hot. So just be mindful. You just take your fork and go down, you can see all the water has been absorbed, which is wonderful. Now, you can either add your butter to the pot or put the rice on your plate and add it on the plate. It's a nice portion there. Let's add our butter. Now in my household, I'm going to take the rest of this butter, I'm going to add it to the rice, and I'm going to give it a stir. That way it's not, the rice won't dry on itself. And the reality is that since this is going to be your dinner, this is going to be eaten right away. I'll just give it a stir. The heat will take care of the melt. You don't really want to whisk things like the rice and whatnot. It's just not. You end up making it more gooey than rice. I'm going to take this big chop. And presentation is also important. You know, make it pretty. You know, if you wanted to, one of the things you could do is you could add a nice green to this, which livens up the plate. Asparagus, Brussels sprouts are amazing. You can just cook those off in the oven in 20 minutes. You know, just a little bit of olive oil, salt and pepper, and they cook up real nice. All right, let's take back to our sauce here. There, look at that. Much less liquid. And now we're going to look at serving. I just have a nice little spoon here to plate it on here. I want to get some of those pineapples. A little bit of everything. A couple more pineapples. And this is another reason why the rice goes so well with this dish, is it's going to soak up all of that wonderful sauce. Yeah, let's show you what we're looking at. That is a pretty plate of food. And you know what? At this point, what I would do is tell you to go ahead and start prepping the other plates, getting them put together for yourself. For the rest of the family or whoever you're cooking for, get your drinks. This doesn't need to be chugged down piping hot. So now's the time to go set up the table, get everything ready, and call everybody to dinner. I'm gonna try it. Remember, ooh, beautiful. One of the joys of being the cook is being able to test it. That's beautiful. The pork is perfectly cooked. It's tender all the way through. There's not a difficult bite there. The sweet from the pineapple and the brown sugar, they just go together. It's just amazing. Remember, this is quality control. We're going to get a little bit of everything on this. Kind of the all-inclusive whole bite. Now we've got everything on that bite right there. That pineapple is so good. Oh yeah, if you're the persons you're going to be serving this to, question if you've been eating in the kitchen That's when you pull the rice over and you cover up the ends that you cut off and say, no. I mean, a little quality control is not bad. I wasn't eating. There you go. We're going to turn the last few things. We're going to make sure everything here is turned off. Our rice, we got our sauce. That's going to actually thicken up a little bit more over the next 10 minutes. This is a darn fine plate of food. I think that you're going to really enjoy it. So, well, thanks for another episode of Code for Cooking. Again, I'm Jeff, and I look forward to cooking with you in the future. Come back and check out many of our other recipes. It's nice to be able to come through and have that relaxed environment. I don't want to have anybody stressed out cooking. This is our time to enjoy ourselves. And the result is a fantastic meal. Alright, we'll see you back here next time on Code for Cooking. Hey, if you like what you saw here, please hit the like and subscribe button as always. That way we continue to bring new content and get you more videos out there that you can enjoy. Thanks very much. Keep cooking. We'll see you back here at Code for Cooking.